I'm Beit Gorski. Wow, thank you. I'm going to hold my cards. I grew up in beautiful woods of rural Wisconsin. And as a young adult there, thank you, Big O Badgers. As a young adult there in the 90s, it was not safe to be transgender. The only other trans person I knew back then was murdered by their own family. The only media images I saw those days of trans folks were of helpless victims in violent scenes. I didn't know about the pioneers who were fighting so hard for trans visibility, inclusion, and safety. 20 years later, we're on the cover of magazines, and our voices are finally being heard in mainstream households. Most folks know about Caitlyn Jenner and Laverne Cox, yet there are tens of thousands of trans women, men, and non-binary folks who are working really hard at self-preservation as we try to live our lives as ourselves. And it is getting better, yet we have a 41% suicide rate in trans youth. And these women have all been murdered since the first of the year in the last 6 months alone, simply for being transgender in the United States. So here's where it's awkward. Trans women of color are fighting for their lives. And a lot of cisgender folks are struggling to figure out how to talk about trans folks in a way that's respectful. So tonight, I want to just cover some basics. So, increasingly, the US is rigidly gendered. Everything from body wash to bathrooms has the social story that there are only two options, pink or blue. And then we're told that those are magically and naturally opposites somehow. That story fuels gender-based violence in the world, yes, and gives us insultingly, shockingly, horribly simplistic models to work with to understand ourselves and each other. Reality is far more interesting. Let's just start with biological sex. The baby's born, doctor looks at 2 of more than 80 sex characteristics and then assigns a lifelong identity. This assignment will profoundly shape that child's entire life. And this rigid story negatively impacts girls and boys and is used to legally justify the genital mutilation of an average of 5 intersex babies each day in the US. The quick take home on this is that it's just a story. Your body is not your identity. Someone else's story about your body is not who you are. Gender is a social experience, and it has layers. Expression is the only part of gender that we actually get to observe. The clothes, the hair, the mannerisms, those are behaviors, not identities. When we talk about identity, identity is something that's internal. Identity can't be observed or assessed. It is a self-evident truth, something that we know about ourselves. When we talk about gender orientation, that's the experience one has with your own gendered body. And if your body is incongruent with your identity, we call you transsexual. But for right now, let's just talk with those first 2 layers. A trans woman is female, period. Even if her expression is masculine. So Laverne Cox was assigned male at birth, right? But she wasn't born a boy. She had to perform masculinity. On the cover of Time magazine, Laverne was very feminine. Trans women are often under tremendous pressure to be extra feminine. And that pressure is not coming from trans women's experiences and trans women's values. That's the freaking patriarchy in action. Thank you. That's, so, a little more there. And on some days, Laverne and other trans women and other cis women might dress androgynously, not pink or blue at all. And guess what? They're still women. So, your expression is not your identity. No matter what the expression is, you can't observe identity. And look at just notice the combinations, all the wide variety that we have. Not all women are feminine. Not all men are masculine. Not all non-binary folks like myself are androgynous. And there are way more than 3 options. It's really important to get this right because it's about dignity and safety. So notice your assumptions about gender. Challenge the story. And stop assuming anyone's identity. So here's the quick and dirty on how you find out if someone's a she or a he or a z or a they. Offer your information first, and then you ask for theirs. It's as easy as this. I'm a non-binary person. I use Z pronouns. How about you? Thank you.